Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, beautiful people. Welcome back again to my channel. So, inshallah, in today's video, I'm going to be continuing with the third episode of Sujud-Sahwu. In my last episode, I spoke about cases of addition and how to perform Sujud-Sahwu in cases of addition. So, if you haven't watched the video yet, go back to my last episode and watch it so you'll be understanding how to perform Sujud-Sahwu if you added to the pillars of Salat. As I've told you in my last episode, I told you pillars of Salat, the ruku, the sujud is prostration, while ruku is bowing, and also standing. Any increasement, any addition to the pillars of Salat, then you have to do Sujud-Sahwu after Salam. So I also talked about increment in the unit of Salat. Maybe in a case when you are supposed to perform 4 rakah, 4 units, and then forgetfully you prayed 5 instead of 4. So in this case, you also have to do Sujud-Sahwu after Salam, because that fifth one is an addition. So any addition in Salat, then you do Sujud-Sahwu after Salam. I also spoke about maybe in a case whereby you are supposed to pray 4 rakah. You're supposed to pray 4 rakah like Salatul Dhuhr now. It is 4 units. So you prayed 2 forgetfully, and then you did Salamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Salamu alaikum wa rahmatullah forgetfully. So where is the remaining 2 to complete 4? Anytime you remember this, then that additional salutation you did requires compensation. So you do the Sujud-Sahwu as well after Salam. So this was my explanation in the last video. If you haven't watched it yet, go back to my last video and watch so you understand. So inshallah, in today's video, I'm going to be proceeding to the last cases of addition, or the last case for addition. This is, so let's say for instance, in a case whereby you in the first rakah, you forgot to bow, and you did not remember that you forgot to bow in the first rakah. Instead of you to bow, you just prostrated, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar for the second unit, right? Then now you are standing. You now remember that, oh, in my first rakah, I didn't bow. So what do you do in such situation? If you remember in the second rakah that you did not bow in the first rakah, so what you should do is just leave that second rakah alone. If you are in the recitation of Surah Al-Fatiha, you are reciting Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, and you remember that, oh, in my first rakah, I did not bow. So what should you do? Just leave the recitation alone and bow. Are you getting my point? Because if you continue to recite Surah Al-Fatiha, then your salat will be invalid. So you have to leave the recitation and bow immediately. So that second rakah has to be your new first rakah now. Are you getting it? Then you continue your salat the way it should be. Then after you've completed your salat, you have to do, and you've done the salutation, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. You have to do Sujud-Sahwu after Salam. So this is a case of addition. So another case is that, let's say for instance, in the first rakah, you forgot to bow in the first rakah. And now in the second rakah, you remembered while you are bowing in the second rakah. This is where you remember that, oh, in my first rakah, I didn't bow. So what should you do in this situation? Do you stand up from bowing and bow? No. In this case, you make this second rakah your first rakah. You don't have to stand up again. Just keep bowing, and this will be your first rakah. So you have to cancel the first rakah and make your second rakah your first rakah. I hope I'm communicating. I'm going to be demonstrating it now. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. You've recited Surah Al-Fatiha and also the next surah after Surah Al-Fatiha, the next thing you should do now is to bow. Allahu Akbar, right? Bow in. So let's say, for instance, you forgot to bow. You just went straight to prostration. Allahu Akbar. In this case, you forgot one of the pillars of Salat, which is bowing. So what do you do in such situation? So let's say you are in the state of prostration now. You prostrated forgetfully instead of bowing. As long as you remembered now that, oh, I haven't bowed, then what should you do? Just stand up immediately, because your salat will be invalid if you continue praying when you knew you haven't bowed yet. So you shouldn't leave any pillar of salat, and bowing in salat is a must. So don't continue with the prostration. Just stand up immediately, and then you have to return back to the pillar you forgot. Then you bow. After bowing, you can now complete your salat as usual. You get it? So, how do you compensate for the forgetfulness you made? So, after you've completed your salat, you have to do Sujud-Sahwu after salam. Are you getting it? Why is it an addition? Addition because you left something from the pillars of salat. You omit something, you remove something from the pillar of salat, and then you proceed to another pillar. Then the moment you remembered that, oh, you left something, then you had to return back to what you left. So that prostration you did was an addition. Are you getting it? Before you remember that you forgot bowing. So that prostration is an addition. So immediately you omit, you remove something from your salat, and you remembered, then how do you compensate? Then your sujood-sahwu has to be after salam. So cases of addition, any addition in your salat, or omission in the pillars of salat, any addition in the pillars of salat, or omission in the pillar of salat, then you have to do sujood-sahwu after salam. Am I communicating? So this will be my explanation for this video, and inshallah in my next video I'm going to be talking about the wajibat of salat. How do you compensate if you remove from the obligations of salat? So that will be my topic for the next video, inshallah. Before I leave, let me give you the last example on this topic of today. So another demonstration is that, let's say for instance, after you've recited Surah Al-Fatiha and other surah after Surah Al-Fatiha, now you remember to bow. Allahu Akbar. Sami Allahu liman hamida, right? You stood up. Now, Allahu Akbar. Then you stood up. What did you just leave? You left sitting between the two prostration, and you also forgot to prostrate the second time. So this is an omission. You left out from the pillars of salat, and it is very important. Your salat will be invalid if you did not complete the pillars of salat. So now you stood up for the second rakah. Meanwhile, you did not sit between the two prostration, and you did not prostrate in the first rakah. So you started Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. You were reciting, and now you bow. Allahu Akbar for the second unit, right? Subhanallah, like you completed your recitation, your adkar, then you stood up. Are you getting it? So now you are standing. If you remember that in this position you want to prostrate, right? If you remember that in your first rakah you didn't sit between the two prostration, and now you are in the second rakah, what do? You leave that standing alone and sit immediately, because you left sitting in the first rakah. So you have to sit immediately and then prostrate and then stand up for the second rakah. So you have to leave the second rakah and return to the pillar you forgot. Are you getting my point? Yeah, so you continue your salat from there. Now, after you've seated and you've prostrated, which means you've done what you left in the first rakah, and now you will now stand up for the second rakah and continue your salat as it should be. Then, after the completion of this salat, you do Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Then you compensate for that forgetfulness. You do two sujud after salam. Are you getting my point? You do two sujud after salam. So another case is that um you know the reason why I told you, as long as you haven't got to the place of prostration, you remember that you did not prostrate in the first rakah while you were about to prostrate. You were about to prostrate. Then you remember that, oh, you did not sit in the first rakah and you did not prostrate in the first rakah. You remembered when you were about to prostrate. So in this case, you have to go down and sit and then prostrate. But in a case whereby you've already prostrate now, in the second rakah, in the second unit now, after you bow, now you want to prostrate. You did Allahu Akbar. Then you sat. If you should sit down, and now you remember that, oh, in my first rakah, I did not sit down. In my first rakah, I did not prostrate. So now you are in the second rakah, you are now in the same place you forgot in the first rakah. So what should you do in this situation? Just sit down, prostrate, and then you have to cancel the first rakah you did and make this second one your first rakah. Then you stand up for the second one. Are you getting it? So the difference between the first explanation and this one is that if you have not gotten to where you left, the pillar you left, if you have not gotten to that pillar you left in the second rakah, then just leave whatever you are doing and go back to the pillar you leave. Are you getting it? Or you left? But if you are in the pillar you left in the second rakah, then you don't have to go back to anything. Just cancel the first one and make that second one your first rakah, your first unit. Are you getting my point? So that is it for today. Ensure you watch the episode from episode 1 to this episode. And inshallah, in my next episode, I'm going to be proceeding, inshallah, with Sujud-Sahwu. I hope you understand everything about this video. Thank you so much for watching. Barakallahu feekum. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.